Hello, John Giordano. Welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Oh, I'm very happy to be on with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. I can't wait for you to unfold your life, if you will, to my listeners so that they can get to know more about the man, the myth, the legend.
Somebody.
John, you fit in that category. And before we get into all of your accolades and even your book, we want to lay down a foundation about where you came from and who
Okay.
you are to start, because you have an amazing story with many layers where you started at one point and you end at quite another that some people can't even imagine.
I got
But
news for
maybe
you.
you can
Neither
give
could
them
I.
right at the time, and but maybe we can give them a little glimpse of how they might be able to take your
Well,
story
if
and
you don't mind,
process.
what I usually like to start off with is something a little blurb that I wrote in the back of the book. I wrote the book.
Sure.
I wrote it to help motivate people
Yes,
through
yes,
life.
yes, yes. And let's
Regardless
mention
of anything.
the name of the book is The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up.
That's right.
Wonderful. So tell us about the blurb.
Okay, here it comes. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. The kid from the South Bronx who never gave up. Here is my roadmap for positive change. There is one thing in this world, one special lesson, one constant that has guided me through the turbulent waters of life. This infinite rule, which most people know but ignore, or who simply do not follow their life lessons.
Hmm.
That is, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, the obstacles, the people that get in our way, or things that slow us down, follow this one simple rule. Never give up on your dreams, never let go of your passions, and especially never give up on yourself or a God of your understanding. My name is
Wow.
John Giordano, and I'm a recovering addict who turned $300 into 45 million. I was blessed to become extremely successful, and I like to share my story with you. This is how my life was transformed and how I was saved from falling into the abyss of hell. And by following this one rule and learning how to have a life worth living.
Wow, amazing. And I can't agree with you more. I have actually in my office a cross stitch I did many, 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 many years ago. I think before maybe my children were very little and they are now young grown men. And it says, the 11th commandment, thou shalt not give up. And I believe that, like you believe that. So, John, tell us a little bit about your family and where you started.
Okay, let me just say this. My dad was a heroin dealer. My
Mm,
uncle was a hitman. My other family members did nefarious things. Let's go, different things.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
My grandfather was a Shylock. A Shylock is someone who loans you money, okay, at a high interest rate. And if you don't pay, well, you wind up paying one way or the other. I'll put it to
Right,
you that way.
right.
So at 20, my uncle threw my wedding, and then caterer insulted him in front of the family. So the
Mm,
next morning he killed him. So we had to leave town, my new bride and I. So now backtracking back to when I was younger, when I was 8, my father
mhm,
went to jail
mm,
for dealing drugs. Eight and
okay.
a half, I got molested by kids in the neighborhood, some guys. And part of me liked it, and part of me felt shame and guilt and anger. And I
Mm,
couldn't figure out why I could possibly like that at
mm,
all. And
right.
I found out later on doing therapy with people that were sexually abused that they don't even realize, even for a snapshot, that you feel that good because you're touching something that's sensitive. So even for a moment in time, okay, that doesn't make the whole experience based around that, but that's what happened. Then when I
Mhm.
was 9, my babysitter molested me. She was 14.
Oh my
So I got
gosh.
molested by that. Then I winded up in gangs. I winded up in a Hispanic gang, a black gang, an Irish gang, an Italian gang. I was in all kinds of gangs.
I'm
I
sorry. I
tried
just
all the flavors I had. Okay, I'll put
yes.
it to you that way. So um, after that, I wanted to get into karate, and there's a whole story. I'm not going to give the whole book around, but I'm just going to give you little
No.
tidbits. And it changed my life.
Wow.
I didn't
So
do drugs. I
karate.
didn't drink.
So am I to understand that karate was a catalyst to help change your life?
Right.
Okay.
Karate was a very big catalyst to change my life.
Okay.
So, and
Okay.
it still continues to do so. Matter of fact,
Wow.
it just called me, sent me an email that I'm going to fly out to Atlantic City. They're putting me. I'm in a couple of Black Belt Hall of Fames, and they're
Mhm.
putting me into another one, which is a magazine, Karate Magazine Hall of Fame.
Oh,
So
wow.
I could go on and on with all kinds of crazy stuff. But
Right.
so what happened was, even though you learn your lessons in life, sometimes you don't listen to them.
Yes.
And I wound up meeting a girl. I wound up getting on drugs, and drugs took me down that path that I said I would never be like my family, and I
Yes.
wound up being just like them. I wound up
Yes.
selling
Yeah.
drugs. I wound up doing collection work for the smugglers. I wound up actually teaching karate to one of the cartels, all their bodyguards in Colombia. There's a lot of stuff in the book you'll see.
Right.
Um, so eventually, my family and I was getting out of control at 37
Mhm.
years old, and
Mhm.
they did an intervention on me. That's where the family members get a therapist, and they all did an intervention on me for me to go to treatment. Well, they're doing
Wow.
an intervention on me. I'm wondering who's doing an intervention on them. Because as far
Yeah.
as I was concerned, I didn't have a problem. They did.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
brother was a dealer. My father, all the people in my family was something.
Right.
So, people used to say to me, John, don't you ever watch The Sopranos? I said, why? I live it. You know. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, so what happened was I went to treatment. I didn't think I had a problem. I was like really the nastiest, angriest client you want to get to.
Mhm.
And long story short, I had I never forget it. They before I went up to the treatment center, I had some cocaine in my sock. I went into the bathroom, got a little high before I went up there, wore my dark sunglasses, and I didn't want anybody to know who I was, which was like stupid. You could tell how out of my brain was out of whack, because I taught a lot of the nurses and doctors. I taught their children karate. So here I am, the
Oh.
karate teacher going up there, who's a drug addict.
Oh.
So, that was embarrassing and shameful, but I didn't care about the embarrassing shame. I just didn't want them to know. I didn't get in touch with shame or guilt, any of that stuff until after I got clean and after, I started to wake up, you know.
Yes.
So what winds up happening was I never forget it. I wanted to go home it was Christmas time. Matter of fact, I just
Okay.
turned a couple of days ago, 38 years in recovery,
Okay.
without a drug,
Okay.
without a drink, without anything. So I never thought it would have 38 minutes, to be honest with you. But here I
Yeah.
am, 38
Yes.
years later. Anyway, uh, I used to say "f God." I was not very nice with anything, and my therapist at the time said to me, uh, they told me I couldn't go home for Christmas Eve, and I said, "No, I want to go home to see my kids. I don't want them to see me like this." I was lying. I wanted to go home because my friends would come and give me Christmas cards with cocaine in it.
Yeah.
See, so uh, so what wound up happening, I really got angry, and I don't know about you or anybody else that's listening to this, but I don't just get angry; I got rageful, and it would
Yeah.
take me hours or even sometimes days, not to calm down. So I
Wow.
went, I punched the door into my room in the hospital. I went in. I remember the therapist saying to me, John, why don't you try praying on your knees? I said, let me tell you something. I says, I'm a recovering Catholic. That's all we do is pray on our knees. Okay? I got
Mhm.
calluses on my knees. I mean, So
Mhm.
I said, what do you mean? God doesn't listen to me? How about if I'm in the closet? When you hear me? I was really nasty because I was in pain.
Yeah.
I was in emotional distraught. And, and I said, let me give this a shot anyway, because I was in so much pain. I was already 3 weeks without drugs. I was
Mhm.
like, I was being present. I put it that way to you.
Right.
Addicts usually live in the future or they live in the past. They
Right.
don't live in the now.
Mhm.
So I went to get my knee down, and I tell you, I couldn't get my knee down. Now I know that sounds a little strange and like baloney, but it's not. I had to push my knee down. Then I had
Mhm.
to push my other knee down, and I said, God, whoever's out there, energy, whatever you want to call it, let me know what you want to do and take this pain away because I can't deal with this anymore.
That's right.
Okay, because I started to realize all the harm I did to me and my kids and my family.
Mhm.
Well, I can tell you something. It went away like it never was there. Now,
Yes.
I'll tell you something interesting. I tried to get it back.
Wow.
It didn't come back.
Mm-mm.
And that was my spiritual awakening in treatment. And
Yes.
I had another one in there too. And um, I remember they had what is known as exiting. Exiting is when the nurses and the doctors and the therapists, they get you in a room and they tell you if you need long-term treatment or you need a little bit more treatment. And I went in and I started to turn my life around after all this stuff. And so the doctor said, oh, John's doing really good. And the counselor, everybody was saying, he's doing good. And then the head doctor said, oh,
Mhm.
he's full of it. Well, you can take the kid out of the street, but you can't take the street out of the kid. So the street kid came out. He started cursing at her, telling everybody, look, I can kill all of you in this room. You'll never get out alive. Oh, the stupidest things that come out of somebody's mouth, I did. So one of the doctors said to me, John, all we want to do is help you. And I
Right.
busted out into tears. And I ran out of
Ah,
the room. I felt like I was an inch tall, running out inside my shoes, to be honest with you.
ah.
And they gave me a couple extra weeks in treatment. And I was like one of the ones that were most likely maybe not going to make it.
Yeah.
Now that wasn't true anymore. So anyway, as time went on, um, I only went to the ninth grade. So
Okay.
you know, uh, so you know who my family was. You know what kind of schooling I had. I had a real low self-esteem, and though you would never know it because I was a national karate champion, all this
Mhm.
big tough guy, street kid. But
Mhm.
inside there was another kid that nobody
Yep.
saw.
Yes.
And when I got into recovery and went back to school, I got my GED, I got
Mhm.
all my degrees and all the stuff that I did. I was so afraid to get the GED. I never forget it. I didn't go to
Ah,
school. I didn't go to school for 25 years. Now,
right.
in 25 years, they didn't have algebra when I was in school. We
Yeah.
didn't have any of that stuff. So here I am. I go to take a GED test and I got algebra. So I'm guessing at everything, right? And the fractions, who remembers fractions? You know, I couldn't remember any of the stuff that I learned, but
Right.
I guessed a lot of it, and I made it by about 3, 4, I think 4 points.
Okay.
So I got my GED. They don't count how many points you make; all they want to know if you got it.
Right.
So then I went to school to become a therapist. And you had to have 300 hours of schooling, of addiction training, and 6,000 hours of on the job supervision.
Whoo! So you didn't have to go to college?
No, different kind of college. Yeah, college, but it was special. The specialty was addiction.
Okay.
So at the time, now it's all changed. You have to have a master's and all this other stuff.
Oh,
I remember
yes,
this
most
was
definitely.
almost 37 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Things have certainly changed.
yeah, yeah. So it was really interesting because when I when I got clean, I was like 14. My wife was still using. I'll never forget. I got out of
Oh,
treatment.
no.
Oh yeah, I got out of treatment, and my wife hands me a vial of coke and says, "Oh, you didn't do drugs for 6, 8 weeks. Yeah, just do one hit." I never
Ah,
did one. I never did one of anything. So
ah,
the bottom line said, "Oh, that's okay." So they told me in treatment, no, don't make any major decisions for the first 9 months to a year. Well, I
mhm,
did. We went to therapy. We went to this. It just didn't work, and I couldn't deal with it anymore.
mhm.
Anyway, um, we got divorced. I became homeless. She got the
Oh,
house, she got the car, she got everything.
mm,
And a friend of mine loaned me a room in a hotel that he owned. And here I am in a 1 bedroom little hotel room. I had a jar to put quarters in when I had quarters.
Ooh,
I had a bicycle somebody loaned me. So I started off from basically zero.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my kids used to come and we all used to cry together. And they used to
Oh,
go, Daddy, what are you doing here? And why are you here? And, how come you're not with mommy? That kind of thing. So
yeah.
that was another trauma event.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
you know,
Now,
it
John, what year was this? What years were this
Oh,
occurred?
this was 19. I got clean in 1984, December
Okay,
4th,
okay. December
1984.
4th,
So
1984.
you got
Okay.
1985, almost 86. And what happened was, here I am in this room. And you want to know the truth? I
Mm,
really had a good time. I had a
yeah,
bicycle I used to ride on the beach.
yeah.
All right. And I used to look at the stars. I was working out. I was getting in shape. I wasn't doing drugs. I was going to
Mhm.
meetings. I was praying to God of my understanding, which in the beginning, I never forget an old timer came up to me and says, Hey, John, how about God for your God of? I said, No, look, man, I know how to
Mm,
spell, right? So he said, No, 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 no. God, good, orderly direction. I said,
mm.
That's my God. I can handle that for now. And the funny part, fast forward to today, I'm a chaplain for the North Miami Police Department. So I'm a pastor.
Good.
Right. So, I mean, what I do my best to tell people, and the story goes on. I got cheated by my doctor. I got cheated by my therapist. I opened
Mm.
up a treatment center. I raised $250,000, and I opened up my first hospital program. And I don't want to give that story away, but I got
No.
cheated by them. And then after that happened, I stayed there regardless. They took the treatment center out from under me, but they
Oh,
allowed me to
no.
stay, right?
Yeah.
And all I could tell
Well,
you
no.
is,
Well, hold on, John. There's a big jump between the fact that you were homeless,
okay, well, that's what
but
I'm going to explain to you.
you'd been studying though. You were homeless, but you've been studying,
Well, no,
and
no.
then
Here's what
all of
happened.
a
I
sudden
was homeless.
mhm.
Then I decided I had an idea to open up a treatment center.
Okay,
So I told
okay.
my friend who owned the hotel that I had this doctor who was a famous doctor at the, which actually is the doctor that treated me in Mount
Mhm.
Sinai Hospital.
Okay.
But I never spoke to him. I lied. So he
Oh,
says to me, "Well, if you get that guy, I'll give you the money. How much money you need?" Well,
right,
what do I know? All I know is I've been to a treatment center. I don't know how much it costs to run one. So I
right,
said, "Oh, $250,000." He
right,
said, "Well,
right,
you got him. I'll give you the money."
right,
So I went into the doctor's
right.
office. I told him. He says, "John, it's funny that you came here. I was just thinking about that." He was a comedian, this doctor. So he says, "Let's do it." So that's what we did. Long
Yes,
story short, I hired my therapist.
yes.
I didn't know it was not right to do. I had most of the staff from the hospital that I came from.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah, so I stole their staff. I gave my therapist, he was making 29,000 a year as a program director. I gave him 50,000. I
Okay.
was so appreciative. They saved my life. They had
Yeah,
me look at things totally different.
yeah.
Well, what wound up happening eventually, um, they took the treatment center out from under me. He didn't like
Wow,
the fact that I was his client and I was his boss. So there's a
wow.
whole story in there about that.
Well,
Then,
let's leave that to further out the book,
right.
for people to
Now,
read that in the book.
the next
Wow.
part, after I got my 6,000 hours, I had to stay there for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I learned everything about that business.
Yes.
Okay. And I left. They
Yeah.
gave me a contract. I'm not even going to tell you how I left. It's in the book. It
Yep.
wasn't the most eloquent way to leave,
No, I'm sure
but I left.
not.
Okay. So, so what happened was my friend that originally lent me the money said, "Look, I got another guy that wants to open up a treatment center."
Okay.
I says, "Okay." So he says, "But he wants a business plan." I says, "I don't know how to make a business plan." He says, "I'll do it for you." So he helps you make a business plan. I
Oh,
go all the ways up to West Palm Beach, which was an hour ride from where I was,
yes.
and I forgot the business plan.
Oh,
I was so nervous that I forgot the business plan.
oh
Well,
my.
I was 2 minutes away. I couldn't run back. I had to go forward. I did. I said,
Yes.
"Look, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I forgot the business plan. He threw a napkin at me. He said, okay, write down what you need the money for. And that's what I did. So I opened up my second treatment center, which was very successful, just like the first one.
Yes.
Trouble is, you're doomed to repeat if you make the same mistakes. I never had a lawyer at either one. I was my lawyer. By the way, guys, don't suggest to be your own lawyer. Okay.
No.
Like your own doctor or your own lawyer, you don't want to do that. Anyway, we built it up after a year. My sponsor, who I had in the program, I got him a job. All right. I got him out of the hospital where he was working.
Mm-hmm.
And a sponsor is somebody that teaches you the 12 steps, that supports
Yes.
you. Okay. So after a year, we built it up. The guy says to me, he had a $700 bill from a phone bill at the time. And I said, well, look, I brought in $70,000 worth of people, clients, and I'm
Right.
from Miami. I'm not from West Palm Beach. So, you know, back then you had to pay for call, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
he says, well, you're fired.
What?
I said, you can't fire me. I'm your partner. He says, read your contract. Well, I was going to throw him through the window. Okay. But I'm in recovery. So I told my sponsor, who was also with me, come on, come with me. Let's leave. You don't know how to run a program. He'll close it. So my sponsor turned around and says, I can't leave. I just bought a house. And I'm never going to make that kind of money again. So here I am. I got my stuff out of my drawer and my desk. I went into the parking lot, sat on my car, and I cried.
Yeah.
And it says, here, this happened again.
Oh
I
my
couldn't
God.
believe it.
Oh my
My
God.
fault. Nobody else's fault.
Right.
I didn't know the guy was a corporate raider. He was somebody who gets people who know what they're doing, have them build up the business, and then takes it out from under them and keeps the key person out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yes.
was my second story.
Wow. Now let me ask you about these people, and it may be in the book, but just give me a short answer. Are these people still running these same businesses?
Actually, the people died. The first treatment center, the both of them are dead today.
Okay. Okay.
Not by my hands or my uncle, but no,
Right.
they got sick and they died. They had cancer.
Yes. Okay.
The other guy, his sons wind up, I think one died from drug overdose, and I think they wind up eventually closing the treatment
Okay.
center. So they're gone.
Okay.
So
All right.
then I got invited to be a clinical director at a homeless shelter for addicts, alcoholics, and people that had HIV and mental health issues. And it was an old TC, a therapeutic community, they used to call it, where
Right.
they put a guy in it, they put you in the middle of the room, they beat you up, and then they break you down and they build you back up. So I said, this is ridiculous. I didn't need anybody up to beat me down. I did a good enough
Right.
job on my own.
Right.
And then we used to feed them cakes and chocolates. We used to get our food, all donated. It was a 55-bed indigent inpatient facility. And we used to get all our food there, right? And they used to give cakes and chocolates for dessert. And of course, in the half, give your kids some sugar. Let me know how you do. All right. Then afterwards, what would happen? They would act out. We would put them on a bench and put a sign around their neck and shame them about how they were acting. I said, this is absurd. So I resigned. Then I was going out with this woman, and she says, why don't you open up your own? I said, I don't want nothing to do with treatment centers. I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
So I was broke as a joke. I had no more money. I had a spending addiction because, when you're a kid has no money, and I got $80,000 from one contract when they threw me out, and $80,000 I spent it all, of course. Kids from the hood, we don't know how to take care of money.
Yeah.
So I'm doing better today, but not as good as I would like, but better. So anyway, I said, no. I said, look, I only got $300 in the bank. What am I going to open up? She says, no, you can do it. You can do it. I said, okay. So a friend of mine owned a little house next to his office. It was a chiropractor. It was one of the black belts, friend of mine. And I said, well, how much do you want for that little 750 square foot office? He said, how much you got? I says, $300. He says to me, look, John, run the place for a couple of months, get some money, and then you can pay me $300 Come on. Well,
Okay.
here I am by myself running a treatment center, which was fine because I know how to do it.
Right.
And I didn't take insurance, and I used to give nutrients to the people, and look at them, would teach them meditation, give them karate classes, exercise
Mhm.
classes. So everybody
Mhm.
used to laugh at me and go, "Oh, you go to Giordano, he'll give you vitamins and he'll cure you." Well, I wasn't saying that. I'm saying
Right.
we need to treat people comprehensively. See,
Right.
most
Right.
therapists are only trained psychologically. If
Right.
that's the case, let's send the head to treatment, leave the body home.
Exactly, exactly, but it has to be a head to toe. Yeah, I agree and understand that 100%.
Well,
Now,
most people
John,
don't
what
realize the co-contributing factors to depression and anxiety,
right.
okay? Such
Mhm.
as leaky gut syndrome, H. pylori.
Oh,
Look it up, guys. H.
yeah.
pylori infection, low
Mm,
testosterone, high
okay.
testosterone, hypoglycemia, low
Mhm.
thyroid, closed
Yeah.
head injuries. All of
Yes.
the things can produce depression, anxiety, behavioral problems, and suicidal ideation.
Wow,
We're
yes.
not looking at this stuff. And then heavy metal toxicity, which
Mhm.
causes interruption in neurotransmission, which mimics bipolar disorder and attention deficit disorder.
Wow.
So, I mean,
Wow.
these are some of the things that I learned along the way.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway,
Well, hold on before we go into that. What time frame is it? Are we in the 90s?
you're in the 90s.
Okay.
Yes, you're in the 90s now.
Okay.
So here I am. The treatment center exploded. Uh, I was taking the way I was getting the money was I just put it in my pocket and say, okay, pay me when you have it.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. But
Right.
so I wanted my friend Jerry Goldfarb to be involved with me. I met him at the place I work called The Better Way. And Jerry said, okay, let me see your books. So I laughed. I said, what books? So he says, how do you get paid? I told him, he says, John, we can't do that. I said, I'm giving you 50% of the company. He said, give me 50% of what? I don't even know what you're doing. So I
Right.
said, look. So he taught me how to run a business also. So I learned
Okay.
from everybody along my life journey. Today I'm a consultant for business. That's how funny things are. So
Right.
anyway, um, Jerry came on board and we started to grow. He started to do the business part. Then we got his son who knew about the internet, okay,
Yes.
and how to market it. And
Yes.
eventually we went from 750 square feet to a building across the street that was not for sale, but they weren't doing too well because they knew it was a medical center. And I walked over and I says, how would you like to sell your building? So Jerry says to me, she's not going to sell the building. We don't have any money. I said, don't worry about it. So I went over and says, how would you like to sell your building? She says to me, well, what are you offering? I said, tell you what, I'll offer you $25,000 above market price, but you have to hold the mortgage.
Okay.
And that's what she did. Well,
Wow.
a few years later, we sold and made 150,000 off the building,
Yeah.
which is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we went from there, and then we were treating a lot of very wealthy people. And one of the people that we treated, their family they were billionaires.
Yes.
They were so grateful that they invested in us. They bought our buildings for us. And what we did is we wound up, they were our angel, as they call it. And we
Oh,
went, of course, paying them back, and they were taking 8% of the money.
okay.
And we would pay them every month like a mortgage.
Right.
They held a mortgage. So we went from one little building to another bigger building. And then it turned out that we had 7 buildings. And from one employee, we had 147 employees. We
Wow.
became one of the leaders in the industry in the substance abuse and mental health. Because what I did and what we did, not just I, it was a team, what we did is I did alternative medicine that I was so fortunate. I worked with some of the top people on the planet. One of
Mhm.
them is Dr. Blum. He's the geneticist who found the main addiction gene, which is the
Ooh,
DRT2 ALE1
okay.
variant gene. His name is Dr. Kenneth Bloom.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm on his research team.
Oh, wow.
And he's in about 800 medical and scientific peer reviewed journals.
Wow.
If anybody knows what a peer reviewed journal is, it's Not easy to get even one. Most doctors don't have one.
Right.
I'm actually on the team. I have 79 medical and scientific peer reviewed journals, which here's the kid from the South Bronx who went to the ninth grade, is really has a GED.
Yes,
All right.
yeah.
And
That
get
was
all this.
only by 4 points. That was only
Right. I
that
mean,
was only by
so here we are, right? And what the funny part was is that here I am. I lecture all over the world. I lecture about almost 100 countries.
Yes.
I lecture internationally. I've been in
Yes.
Taipei at the Neuroscience Conference. I
Yes.
lectured in Budapest and Chicago and Baltimore and on and on and on and on at all these
Exactly.
international conferences. Matter of fact, I'm
Yes.
lecturing next month at another one on Zoom. So,
Well, let me ask you, where does the 45 million, or do I have the right number, 45
yeah,
million? Where does that come from? Was that
okay.
because of the big
So what happened
centers?
was this. Okay, we were the leaders in the industry. We were what is known as a JACO accredited facility, which means
Yes,
we had the same accreditation as a hospital.
correct. I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with JACO.
Okay.
We own a home health agency.
Oh, then you know very well that they're on top of you like white on rice.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I know. So I'll tell you a funny story about that. We had, when they send when you get JACO, the first go around is kind of easy, but then they come around the second time, and then they start digging in, and we'll call EOC, environment of care. They check your charts. They talk to the patients to see how they are, what
Right.
they think about. Then they talk about you to your staff. But you know what they do, right?
Yes.
So we had all that. So the investigator got my whole staff, my psychiatrist, my nurses, my doc, everybody. And he said, "Well, I have to tell you something." And she's like, really got serious. And I says to myself, "Oh man, I wonder what we didn't do."
Mm.
She says, "I'm going to tell you this, but all I can say is this: don't tell anybody what you guys do here, because they may steal it."
Uh,
And we all
wow.
looked at each other. We stopped and just, "Well, let me tell you what we used to do." Okay,
Wow.
nobody. They still talk about my treatment center. It's been 12 years since we sold.
Wow.
We did
Wow.
hyperbaric medicine. That's oxygen under pressure.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
who's going to argue that drugs and alcohol don't damage the brain? Nobody.
Nobody.
What are you doing about post-acute withdrawal syndrome? You know what doctors tell you? Time.
Wow.
No, you can heal the brain.
Right.
We used to do heavy metal testing. We used to do neurofeedback, biofeedback,
Yes.
colonics to clean out the lower
Yeah.
intestines,
Yeah.
lymphatic drainage from massage to clean out drugs on a cellular level, amino
Yes.
acid therapy. We did things, sound therapy, light therapy. We treated the gut 20 years ago. Now they
Yes.
call it the second brain.
Wow.
So
Yes.
most
Yes.
people don't know 75 to 90% of dopamine and serotonin, your feel good drugs, comes from your gut, the bacteria.
Yes.
And it goes
Yes.
up your vagus nerve and then deposits it into your brain.
Wow.
Now,
Yes.
Dr. Blum, who founded the DRD2 ALE1 variant gene, that's the
Mm-hmm.
addiction gene, that's the main gene, okay, doesn't mean that you're going to be an addict, because there's such a thing as epigenetics. Epigenetics means the social environment can change actually the gene expression.
Right.
So you don't have a death sentence, let's put it that way.
Right. Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
work with him, and then I work with Dr. Paul Hartz, who did hyperbarics. Dr. Hartz and Dr. Williamson are the ones that went to the Senate and got them to approve wound healing for the VA for diabetics, because they were amputating so many people.
Oh,
And
wow. And that was
hyperbarics,
called what? That's called what?
hyperbarics, HBOT.
Hyperbarics. Okay. Yes.
Right, it's
Yes.
oxygen on the front. They used to use it for the bends. Then
Okay.
they found out, the bends when you go down diving, and then you had nitric oxide in your blood, and they come up, and you have to sit in this chamber for a few hours, depending how deep you went.
Right.
Then
Right.
later on, they found out it heals wounds. And now they're
Mm.
finding out in the last 10 years, that actually 15 years, that it actually does TBI cases, traumatic brain injury cases. So
Okay.
it heals the brain, the damaged cells in the brain.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. I have a
Wow.
chamber in my house, by the way.
Oh,
Same as
wow.
they have in the hospitals. So, and they use
Wow.
it for anti-aging, killing cancer cells. See,
Oh.
cancer is anaerobic. It's not aerobic. So oxygen kills it. And there's some research out about that. Um,
Mm.
so I also got in touch with, I'm also one of the leading experts on psychedelics, which is
Yes, I've been
now,
hearing about that lately.
yeah, now is becoming, you know, I've been doing it for over 20 years with Dr. Deborah Mash from the University of Miami School of Medicine. She
Mhm.
was the head of the brain bank. She's a neuromolecular scientist and the head of the Alzheimer's Foundation. She
Right.
just
Go.
retired from that, and she's currently in England doing what they call the FDA trials on ibogaine. Ibogaine is a bush from West Africa that is
Mhm.
used for a rite of passage.
Okay.
And what had happened was this heroin addict called Howard Lutzoff wanted to get a new high, and he found ibogaine. So, and he was doing about 10 to 20 bags of heroin a day. He was a real heavy user,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
Now, I don't know if you know how long it takes to detox from that. It's anywhere from 7 to 9 to 10 days, really,
Ooh.
to detox. Anyway, he did ibogaine. The next morning, he woke up detoxed and no cravings, 24 hours. So he said,
What?
whoa, wait a, oh yeah, look it up. So, oh,
Whoa.
by the way, guys, anything I tell you, don't believe me. Look it up. That's what I tell everybody. So he opened up
I'm
a
gonna
clinic in
ask you to spell the
Ibogaine,
ibogaine.
Ibogaine,
IBOG.
Ibogaine, Ibogaine.
Ooh, got it, got it, got it.
So now, what happens is he opened up a place in Panama, a clinic. He got a hold of Dr. Mash somehow. I don't remember how that happened. She
Mhm.
couldn't get along with him and opened up a place in St. Kitts where
Mm,
we did
look at there.
research and we did ibogaine, of course. And nobody believed it. I have one of my friends he's the psychiatrist for the NFL and the NBA,
Mhm.
Dr. Rick Seeley. And Rick, I say, Rick, listen, ibogaine, you can't believe what it does. It detoxes people in 24 hours. They don't have any cravings. He said, John, I love you. I know you're into alternative medicine, but this is
Mhm.
absurd. I said, I'll tell you what, Doc, I'll pay for you your trip and for your client. Okay. And if it's not everything I say, you pay for your own. He says, you
Mhm.
got it. So I said, but I want one thing I require. I want you to bring me your worst client. That's what he did. Well, let me tell you
Wow.
something. The guy went in one
Wow.
way and came out a different way.
Unbelievable.
And
You
he
know,
could
John,
not believe it.
well, Imma tell you, you brought so much to me today, as I knew you would.
Oh,
I
there's
knew
more.
you were gonna
I
be
got
a
a bunch more
very,
here.
very deep, deep, and involved interview for today. I knew that. But your story is amazing. To get back to that, the original, your story is amazing. And the kid from the South Bronx who never gave up, and that's definitely the title for your book because I, on purpose, wanted you to take us step by step through all your adversity. I mean, being born in the Bronx, especially, and I'm not sure, I'm not going to say how old you are,
I'm
but
76.
you're 30, you're what?
76.
You're 76. Okay, so my husband is also from the South Bronx, and my husband was born in 1958, and the South Bronx was tough, tough, tough when he was a little boy, very tough. And so it had to been tough, of course, when you were coming through.
I
And
was an inner
it's
city
it's
kid
a
at the projects.
yeah, it's a hell of a thing to even get out of the Bronx if you were born during the times that you're talking about. And for you to have gone through the big born in the family, and you can't get out of those families hardly ever. You can't get away from them hardly. From that to your educational background, to the drugs, to everything else. And then for you to end up over here on the positive side and have done so many accomplishments. That's why people need to know exactly what you said. You can never give up. And I want everyone to be able to access your book. That's why we're going to have the link to your book and social media, your websites, because you've got to down below in the podcast show notes, as well as in the video description box on YouTube. John, you have an incredible story.
Well, I opened up a ketamine clinic. That's another psychedelic. We're
Oh,
helping people with depression and anxiety. We
oh
treat the
wow.
gut. I do PTSD work also with, like I said, I'm a chaplain for the police department, and I
Yes.
work with police officers that have been in shootings, and I work with
Yes.
guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan,
Oh
wounded
wow.
warriors. So
Yes.
that's what I do also. And the
Yes.
ketamine clinic helps with depression and anxiety. It's the ketamine clinic, South Florida.
Well, we
Unbelievable women that I work with. They're all women. I'm the only guy, by the way.
oh
So it's
God, and
really
you like it like
interesting.
that.
I love working with women. They're so right on point. My partners are two anesthesiologists. They really know what they're doing. We really care about the patients. We do coaching. We do group therapy with them. It's all included in the process.
Okay.
Some of these other places don't do that. They just do in and out ketamine. That doesn't work very well that way. So
Right.
we do it because, look, I look at it this way. I'm working with God's kids. And
Yes.
it's my responsibility to do the best I can with them. My son almost died from this disease. So did my
Yes.
wife, and so did me.
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
as they say in the streets, homie, don't play. Okay?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, we definitely want to have your healthcare information in the show notes in the below as well. John, you've been amazing. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming. And a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this interview and be blessed by what you said. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. And they can call me anytime. My phone numbers are on there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.